But switching to Horseshoe Bay with episode 10 of the third season, which as a Park and Nancy shipper, I ate like I ate the biggest meal. And I was so happy about it. But it was also very Nace heavy. I
Hmm.
felt really bad for Ace, not just because he was stuck in a liminal space, but also because he was stuck in liminal space and he had to watch Nancy like connect with another man, which is just not what you want to do when you were gonna tell her how you felt. But that said, the window was closing. She had already warned him. So
I loved episode 10. And before I get into it, I just have to tell everybody I did watch episode 9. Don't
yes.
worry. I didn't skip it. But yeah, this is I think one of my favorite episodes of the season. Like it just
Mhm.
had energy. I know we were privately kind of like venting about the season. I won't expose us here. But I feel like this episode gave me everything that I kind of wanted, something that I was missing. It also made me miss Dynasty. Like that candle lighting gala,
Mhm.
I was like, this is the Carrington Manor. It's over the top. I don't understand what the theme is. But everyone's in their formal wear and I'm in it. And before we get into plot, speaking of the formal wear, they all looked incredible. Like
Mhm.
just jaw dropper one after the next. Like that jacket that Tunji had on.
Mhm.
Nice.
Hello, Bridgerton. Now I'm excited to watch Queen Charlotte.
Because like I have money and I'm gonna spend it. It was
Oh, we did.
lovely.
No, I agree. It was a wonderful. I love episodes where everyone gets together and dresses up, and I feel like they always thrive the best when they have a like real serious, intention-filled story leading up to them. And there was so much tension going into that. Obviously, the candlelight. I knew Bess's plan was going to go horribly wrong, and it went horribly wrong. I mean, they got where they needed to in the end, but it went horribly wrong. And it's like, why are we doing this? Like, this is like she's a small scale witch. Bess is growing, absolutely, but small scale witch and basically trying to take on the Scarlet Witch. You shouldn't do this. Temperance will see through it, and Temperance saw through it instantly. Um, but yeah, and then the fact that S had to sit and watch. I love, by the way, the like flashes between dimensions, the way the
Mm.
camera would quickly zoom in, and then suddenly you'd see S and Hannah in the liminal space, and then quickly zoom out, and you'd see what was going on. Very well shot episode as well. I did love the fact I think the building they were in, I've seen that used in many CW shows before. It was a bank in the pilot of The Flash, and it was a bank in Mexico in an episode of Superman at Lois. So they're getting their use out of that set. But it was a great setup, and I feel like the tension between Nancy and Park. I feel like it was the perfect payoff for that. And then not to jump ahead, but Nancy was worried how much Ace was watching her, and he was like, "No, I just seen you in the and on the dance floor." But yeah, so much going on in this episode, and I feel like that scene kind of summed it all up. But yeah,
Mhm.
what an episode!
I think they put a clock on it too for
Mm-hmm.
the way Hannah and Ace have to get out of the liminal space. And because it adds tension that like it upped the ante of the tension. Like obviously we knew that he was not going to just disappear into ether. That was scared for Hannah. I don't, because your main character can stay, but your recurring character, she might get lost in liminal space.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt like I like the supernatural storytelling in this episode a lot, especially with the how touching things and trying to get people in the real world to figure out you're doing something is exhausting. And that like there's a cost to everything. I love when things have a cost because I hate when you can just do supernatural things and there's like nothing to it. Not that I haven't enjoyed that in shows, but I feel like it's better when there's a weight to it and there's a clock. And there's a lot of emotional work going on with Ace and how he's like, trust me, I am connected to Nancy. I can make sure we get out of this space. He was really, really trying to trust in his bond. And I like that it kind of wavers just a bit. In the like he doesn't give up on her, but like that last ditch effort of putting his hand on her shoulder to try to get like the Morse code thing going. Excellent choice of emotion right there by the writers.
Mm-hmm. They really did build it up very well. I do love it when there's a clock on it and they spend the whole day doing nothing because we did not get much of Nancy, Ace and Hannah in the watching Nancy. We got one scene of them. Ace tried something, it was remotely successful, and then never seen them after that. And I'm like, wait, you left it until you only had 2 hours. What were you doing the whole day? But then they really did kick into gear at the party. And you really did feel for Ace because both the fact that his energy was physically wavering because of how much he was trying, but he did feel a little defeated just because of he could sense the tension between Nancy and Park, and it was a last ditch attempt. And Hannah said it was how it was easier to use technology because you can manipulate it and play with it in a way that you might not be able to connect with a human. But they gave us Ernest in the end. Like, he was able to connect with Nancy, and that was such a powerful scene. The fact that she could feel him, and like again, the quick cut in and the quick cut out, and the quick cut in and the quick cut out between the dimensions. Perfect payoff. I thought we were going to be stuck. Ace was going to be stuck in there for an episode or two longer. I'm glad it didn't last that long, but it was worth it alone just for that scene, because that was some powerful stuff.
I love that he never doubted their connection, and he never doubted Nancy. I think more importantly, he knew that he could get through to her some way. But like, I just gotta come for our girl Hannah for a minute, because she was like, I've been trying for weeks and nothing's worked. And it's like, you knocked on Nancy's door every night
at the same time,
and you threw stuff at Ace. How are they supposed to connect the dots to that, babe? I don't understand. Like, Ace enters his liminal space, and he's like, I've got a concrete plan to get us out. And she's like, I've tried everything. No, you didn't. And I understand you were probably exhausted, but like, I just had to come for my girl Hannah, because I was like, you knocking on the door. What was Nancy supposed to get from that?
No, the only thing that actually is like remotely close is the radio. That was a really good touch for her. Other than that, there wasn't a single thing that was gonna, because there's too much supernatural stuff happening, and they had already. I feel like she would have heard them have written her off. They'd always like, oh, she hopped down. She's the reason why the door is open. She can't be trusted. So like, they wouldn't be looking for you. They didn't even think that you were still here.
I still can't believe that all of this temperance stuff only supposed to have happened over a period of a few weeks. Like, there's been so much going down, and then didn't they say on that episode that Hannah's only been missing for what, like, was it 2 weeks? Was it?
It was 2 weeks, yeah.
I'm like, how did you fit all those adventures into 2 weeks? Yeah, so temperance has only been in their lives for 2 weeks. Wow, we're really going. Nancy and Park have only gotten to know each other over the last 2 weeks. Amanda Bobbsey's gone out of our lives within the last 2 weeks.
That's why Time and Nancy Drew to me is always so funny, because I feel like we've been there for months, and they're like, actually, it's been like, it hasn't even been a month. And I'm like,
yeah,
really? Okay. And I feel that way too because of the way Bess was so sure Nancy wouldn't believe her unless she had concrete evidence. I'm like, if she's only known her for 14 days, why would you need the letters? You've been her friend for months. She can just trust your word.
Yeah, we laughed about that last week when we said, why would she need photographic evidence? And then they actually turned it into a plot this week. I'm like, this is Nancy Drew. She doesn't need evidence to be suspicious of someone. And she wasn't, I know she got over her fear of temperance, but I don't feel that she was connected to her. These two are not besties. She watched this woman give this man a stroke once. I don't feel like it would have taken that much to push her back over the edge to suspicion. So I don't buy that almighty witchy Bess would need physical proof to put Nancy back on that trail, especially since it's coming from someone like Bess, who was close to temperance. Didn't buy that in the slightest.
No. But before we, because we're moving into episode 11 a little bit, before we move over there, Nancy and Park, I mean, they have my heart. I know they're not lasting because I was already like spoiled for like the end of season 3. Because Nace fans, y'all gift sets, talented, y'all are artists. And I've seen some of the things. Didn't mean to. They just pop up on the timeline sometimes. But I do enjoy them because they are quite similar, but they contrast in that he's so logical in a way that she isn't, that sometimes she just isn't aware of how he feels about her. And that first kiss attempt was hilarious. Like, Nancy's always used to just going for it, except for with Ace, which is interesting. But she's used to just going for it. And he backed up, and she was embarrassed. And I was like, girl, do we have to leave? I feel like we should leave for like at least a few hours.
Yeah, he's got her out of character, like the way that she reacted next to that copier, and then when she had the truth serum and she was like, I wonder if he looks that good without clothes, and she like caught herself. That was really funny too, the way that Kennedy acted that. But have we ever seen Nancy like this down bad?
You know, not since that lust spell.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. She's always so logical, where she wasn't here, and it was nice to say.
it does really complicate things for me because, like, obviously I am favorable to Nace. Although, like, you know me, I'm not like that hardcore in my shipping. Like, I'll go where the story goes. But like once they like really backed up into the Nancy Park stuff, I'm like, so we're like really in the midst of this, and we have, you know, 2 more episodes to go for Nancy to like to reassess like her emotions and feelings. I don't know. It just seems like a lot to do since we really are in the center of the park scenario. Like a lot just there's a lot of movement on the board, and Ace is a little behind. And not that it's a race, but like when you're trying to see the story pieces and how they come together, it's like, oh, there's a lot more work to do still to get to Nancy and Ace. They just made so much movement with Nancy and Park. Like there was some heat in that coat closet. There was some, you know, there's a lot going on.
They had a Gossip Girl moment. I was like, okay, Nate and Serena.
Right?
And so like when that happened and she's very much wrapped up in Park and her feelings for Park, when you get to episode 11, I'm just going to skip right to the end when Ace tells Nancy his feelings. And like, I get it because before she was suppressing those feelings and then she wanted to tell them to him. And then that just didn't work out for her because he was leaving with Amanda. Her being stuck still and just staring after him after he was like, yeah, I have feelings for you. And like Ryan interrupts it and then he just leaves and she can't even pay attention to what Ryan is talking about. I was like, Park was in the lead, but now Kennedy's acting as me like, Nancy, you're being very compelling right now. Like Park who at this moment. It's giving like when Park was talking to her and she got a text from Ace and then she just was not responding the way she had been to Park, which is interesting. I just don't know if they like the writing. What's pulling this off is Kennedy's acting because I think the chemistry between Nancy and Ace, because I feel like if the fire that is Park and Nancy just would not be, you wouldn't be able to do Nace and them at the same time and make it be realistic. But Kennedy is giving it her all. And so I feel like, yeah, she can have fiery feelings for Park, but at the same time be like deeply in love with Ace so that the connection with Park is not lessening because it's definitely still there, but not as important, if that makes sense. Like it'd be easy for her to put it up on the shelf if Ace was like, no, it's bar, I want to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah, I had to really sit with the ending of 11 and I'm still kind of unpacking it because I'm like, what is Nancy feeling in that moment? Because I mean, I really don't know what she's feeling because before that conversation, all she knows is she's, you know, she's in this with Park, whatever that means. Like that's where she's at. And then she obviously did have these feelings for Ace because didn't someone talk to her about it? Was it George? Like, yeah, George was like, oh, you like Ace? And she's like, what? And George is like, stop, it's me. But like she does have those feelings, but like when he vocalizes them finally and she's just watching after him, just like stunned. I'm like, is the shock coming from the surprise that 1, he feels the same way, 2, that he vocalized it, 3, that you are currently, I don't want to say committed, but like you're
exploring.
You're elsewhere romantically, sexually. You're elsewhere. Like you've been exploring other things. And now you have this other scenario, you know, on your desk, or is it all the above? Like I'm interested to know like what the motivation was for that reaction, because not that it didn't work for me, I had to sit with it a little bit longer because it wasn't immediately apparent, and I do like that. I appreciate that. It's just that it's not like whacking me over the head with like her running after him or like she did say I don't know what to say, which I feel like you had some things to say, you just couldn't, you know, you didn't have one that fit the moment. So I don't know, I want to know what she felt in that moment and why she felt like she didn't know how to respond.
I think that also goes back to we always said when we do two-parters, it feels like, or two episodes, it feels like a two-parter, and this one was the same because I think it was the start of episode 10. Was it when Nancy and George had that conversation about S? Um, and you could see Nancy was kind of struggling with it because she couldn't even finish the sentences, and then when George finished them for her, Nancy responded in like "come on," as in like "what are we 12" kind of way, because George was all excited about the fact that she liked S. But I feel like Nancy knows it's there but hasn't confronted it, and I feel like it goes back to that thing we talked about the other day about how the best way to hide something from a detective is right in front of their nose. She knows it's there, but she just now hasn't really processed it. And I think she'd started to process it and get excited about the fact of it when she went to see Ace that night. She had time to think about that, even though she didn't know what she was getting into. And then when it was taken away from her, she felt so like stripped of something she was excited for. And then in between that, again, time moves differently. And Nancy Drew Parks showed up. She's got this like explosive romance with him that feels like it almost came out of nowhere for her because, again, it's only 2 weeks old. And now Ace has confronted her with it again, which I think she kind of put that in a box slightly so that she could focus on Park, and is just taking her completely out of left field. So I feel like she's confused at the moment and doesn't know what to do with it. Of course, we know she feels the same way. I loved that moment with George where she was like, "Oh, I mean, what?" Because George seen it coming all along. But like, I just feel like Nancy needs time to process it. And I like the fact that even when Ryan came in, I say sometimes I don't listen to the dialogue in this show. Nancy was not listening to the dialogue in the show when Ryan came in and started talking to her. I like the fact a lot of shows would just drop the romance thing and let Nancy go back to being Nancy Drew for that final moment. But not once did it break on Kennedy's face. She kept in that moment and kept focused on the door that Ace just left through right to the end. So yeah, I just feel like they made us wait for that moment, and it was an incredible payoff. We're not there yet, and I wasn't disappointed that she didn't respond the same way right away. I think it was such a genuine, authentic reaction for someone who usually has all the answers, not to have the answer right away in this situation.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting about this series? They love a low-key love triangle. I feel like there's one in every season, like for Nancy, right? So you have season 1, it's Nancy and Nick together, but there's like Owen things going on. And then we're still, did Nancy and Nick break up in season 1? They did. Then we have Nancy feeling weird about Fanson, and like that's a low key thing going on. But then she gets with Gil in season 3, and there's a low key thing going on there because of Ace. As like we're always like, there's always a triangle going on in some capacity on this show. So I feel like that's how they always balance Nancy's emotions. She's very much as a person who can live in a space where she has deep feelings for somebody else, but can't have a flirtation with another person. And that's kind of, I wouldn't describe her relationship with Park in as a flirtation at this point. It was previously, which is so interesting about that text because it was easy to be like excited about Ace. But they are definitely past flirtation now. So like for Ace to be like, I have feelings, well now we have an issue. Like, what do I do? Like, obviously, the answer is going to be Ace. We all know this. But I do, in these last few episodes, I'm curious to see how we get there, like how she's able to process, especially when so much is going on. Like, we have temperance things afoot. She's still, like, my least favorite. But the plot is getting a little bit more interesting. We removed the Lovers Pact thing in episode 11, and they made it about, like, Charity trying to split her soul so her mom couldn't have it, so her mom couldn't unlock something. And I lost the thread to that plot, if I'm honest, but it seems like it's more interesting than what they've been doing with Temperance.
Yeah, I feel like this story, a lot of it's gone over my head. I said that last week. I do try to keep up, but they keep churning out a lot of names, and I'm like, wait, who's this person again? It's just there's an awful lot going on in it. I like Temperance as a character. But the big twist being that she was the villain all along is not that surprising to me because we kind of knew that was coming. Maybe it's just because we have such high expectations with Nancy and that the show always subverts her expectations. I feel like this one was really predictable. Maybe there's still going to be another twist towards the end, but changing the actress who plays Temperance does not mean we've changed the story. It feels very predictable from the offset. I hope there's more to it than that, and I hope it has a good payoff. I have faith that the show will deliver on that front, but Temperance isn't interesting to me because she's exactly what we thought she was going to be, and giving us the story in the middle where she might not be that, only to reveal that she is, didn't really do it for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So wait, let's walk through this because I want to try to see if I understand it. So what's the guy with the claws and the hat and the doll?
Copperhead.
Copperhead. So the people that he's killing in town are people who are descendants of Charity. So they have like a piece of her soul.
So they're descendants of the people who were on the battlefield that Beckett put her soul into.
Okay, so they have a part of her soul. And Temperance wants those parts. But the Copperhead is trying to kill them before Temperance gets to them. So in 11, they try to save that guy from the jury so that he doesn't die, but also so Temperance doesn't get the piece of Charity's soul. But that didn't work out, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah. So,
but does Temperance need every part of it, or does she only need one to do what she wants to do?
I think it's every, right?
I think
if they're all, this is the last one, right? All the other ones were killed by the Copperhead.
Has there been 2 deaths or 3 deaths so far?
I don't remember. Someone tell us in the comments.
I think it's 2.
There's 2. So 2 more need to happen. Is that right?
Yes.
But if those people died, Temperance...
The piece moves to the next person in the line. That was what they figured out
there we go.
Episode 11. So that's why when Jake died, they were like, where is the soul piece now? And it ended up being in Lev, the drawer. And so if he were to die, then the piece would move again. They wanted, I guess, the piece to be able to move through ancestry so that like it would always be difficult for Temperance to get the pieces of her daughter's soul. Because
but then Temperance just got to Lev, right?
Yes.
So mess. Got it.
We got there in the end.
I felt like I was following, but I'm like, am I following or am I making things up?
No. I feel like the episode 11, I think, did a better job explaining it than a lot of the season is. Maybe it's just because we're watching it apart. But like, I remembered who Jake was and then who the other person who was. Whereas the last few episodes, they'd be spiding out names, and I'm like, nope, don't remember who this person is. Why is there a battlefield? What happened here? But now I think we've found the thread again. The question is Temperance going to kill Lev, or does she have a different way of extracting the soul? Because if the Copperhead's going off killing these people in the hopes that he can find, does the Copperhead want to be reunited, or does he want to keep the soul away from Temperance?
Keep the soul away from Temperance. Yeah, that's why like the whole they locked her out, they hid the soul pieces, and he doesn't want to bring her back. He wants Temperance to mind her business, which they've inexplicably invited Temperance to mind everybody's business once they brought her back to Horseshoe Bay.
Well, and then to answer your question, Michael, though, she's going to kill Lev. But like they mentioned the soul splitter again. So I think because Bess didn't want to use it because she had lost Odette. So she's explaining that she can't keep both souls. One soul's going to have to go. Temperance doesn't have an issue with that. Like Lev is just gonna die, and she's gonna take her daughter's soul out. And also there was a tarot card about sacrifice. Who delivered that? Oh, I forgot. Temperance delivered it herself. She put it in the box, right, that Ryan brings into into Nancy's house, their house, and he's trying to explain it to her, but she's not listening. But Temperance is the one who bought all the. Did she buy everything of the Hudsons? Because they put it up for auction. I think
so, maybe.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, so they were auctioning off items because the Hudsons are no longer rich. And they obviously Ryan doesn't need all of those things. So like Nancy came over when he asked her to, so that they could pick through which items they might want. I don't know if Cecilia's bracelet is going to have some significance, but he gives Nancy the box, and she opens it, and her grandmother's very thick, very heavy gold bracelet is there. It also doesn't look like a piece that Celia would have worn. So, so it just makes me feel like it has significance in some way. But yeah, the plot was interesting. I don't care for Temperance, but I do want to see where this plot is going. There were small character beats too, though, this episode. There's also more nice things. But I'm gonna couch that for a moment.
Before I forget, to circle back to episode 10, did you guys catch the Swift reference?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It was nice.
The whole time
Nice.
that before the reference even came, I was like, "Oh, this is giving me Tom Swift," and then he was like, "My competitor, Swift Enterprises." And I was like, "Yeah, there it is."
I loved it. It was great. I really wish they had gotten to be able to do an episode together. That would have been
Tom should have been
Tom
at this
Swift.
candle lighting party.
Yeah.
Yes. He would have been so great in it.
That is like his that's his world.
Mhm.
Opulence.
Oh wait, I got distracted because now I have an episode 10 thing, and it is an Ace thing. When Nancy turns around and Ace is like right there, and she hugs him. That was a great small moment between the two of them. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of nice content in these two episodes. Moving away from Nace though, because I realized we left Vanson in the dust. They are okay. I'm just gonna keep it 100. They're annoying, and I just I'm kind of glad that they're separated right now because it has given them both an opportunity to shine as individuals. And I just really didn't like. I mean, I loved actually the truth serum thing that was going on in episode 10. I felt like it gave everybody an opportunity to be honest because literally they couldn't.
I felt like
not.
the truth was like extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of it was like there's truth in there, but you said it in a way that I feel like is dramatic. Like the thing that Ryan said to Nancy, I was like, whoa, low blow. Like that is wow. And then I feel like when Nick and George were having their fight, there was truth in what George said about like you wanted to save me. That's true. But then I don't remember what else she said, but I was like, you took it too far for me. Like it doesn't work anymore for me in this argument. Like you had me with you wanted to save me because Nick does definitely have that kind of. It's not as extreme as like Archie Andrews, his like savior like complex, his Superman complex. Nick just, I remember I talked to you guys about like how each of the Drew crew is like love languages, and Nick's love language is just like being there for people and like. Did I make him acts of service? I don't remember. Or yeah, but that's that's part of his his character is like I don't want to make it sound like it's like a toxic way of like wanting to save people, but like, he's that figure. He wants to be that figure. I've always called him like the dad. Like that's kind of like what he is. But what else did she say?
George made it toxic because she said
she went to like the trauma thing
yes.
and Nick had to look on his face and I was like, yeah, I'm with you on that one. She went a little too far. And I feel like we could have dialed that back. We did a little too much in that truth telling.
She said you wanted to be with me because you wanted to save me because you couldn't save yourself or something. And it was very like, oh, we're not coming back from that one. We already weren't coming back from because the way that he enters that conversation is she's talking to Bess and she's concerned that the only reason why she and Nick are still together is because she's never had a good guy before, and perhaps they're not actually soulmates. Perhaps it's just that this is the first time she's had a healthy relationship, and she's never known what that looks like, and she's trying to lock it down. And I was like, that's a real fear to have. I don't know if we should have it at the gala that he's attending.
You know how many times I had to rewind that because it came right after Nancy was like, I wonder if he looks that good with his clothes off. And I was like, how did we get to Nancy being thirsty for Park to George spilling her guts and having a he's right behind me, isn't he moment? Like I rewound it like 4 times to be like, how did we get there? Why did she say that? Why was it important that Nick overheard that? Like there were a lot of Nick and George moments that I had to like watch a couple times to let them sink in and to understand why they're happening. Because I'm not on board with the breakup. Like I feel like something that George said, I don't know if it was 10 or 11. She was like, I want to grow beside you, but I want to, do other things. And I'm like, if you want to grow beside him and you love him, I don't understand. Like you didn't have to get married. You can be together and also go work with Carson if that's what's going to bring you joy. Go to law school. But I don't understand why you have to blow up every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Stop working at the Claw if you don't want to do that anymore and work with Nick. Like, I don't know. Sometimes these like breakup things, I feel like they just happen because they're like, oh, we need to break them up. We're bored. And I'm like, I feel like it could still be compelling if they didn't get married, weren't engaged, still together, but wanted to explore other aspects. Because they talked about like, he was like, you want to date other people? I think this was the truth serum fight. And she was like, I don't know, maybe. And I'm like, when do you guys have time to go like date people when you have temperance and copperheads and there's just a lot on the burners, and I don't see you going on Tinder to go on dates at Jake's Cafe. Like, it's just, I don't know. It took a lot for me to, I feel bad saying stuff like this about the show because I love it, but I don't know, they just aggravate me, this couple, because I don't fully see the vision yet, I guess.
Yeah, with them, I'm totally on board with that. I agree. I said last week that I was happy about the fact that they didn't go the whole "we're not getting married, so let's break up" route, and then that's exactly what they went and did this week. We said last week how they're hitting every predictable, what's that word, trope with them, and there's another one. And 2 weeks, people. This has all happened within 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, George was dying. Within those 2 weeks, probably 24 hours beforehand, she was saved via the soul splitter. And then Nick disappeared for 2 days. Okay, so 72 hours. And now they're not getting married after deciding that within a 24-hour period. And now 24 hours later, they decided they don't want to be together. And I'm like, I get that all those thoughts are swirling around in your head from time to time, but at least sit in the moment for a little bit longer to see how you really feel. Everyone's emotions right now is influenced by everything that's happening in Horseshoe Bay. And these two are just going in whatever direction their emotion takes them this week. And I said to you the other day that it feels like, oh, what are Nick and George getting up to this week? Their writing is so episode specific at this point, and like, wait, that doesn't gel with what we learned beforehand, and it's really bothering me. And I agree that the truth serum thing was very specific, because I get that George wants to grow beside Nick and that they don't want to entangle each other, but then they started having an argument about seeing other people, which is only a hypothetical possibility of a much bigger conversation. They never actually had the bigger conversation, and I feel like that we're just going around in circles with them, and they're doing everything the predictable relationship goes through, but meandering along the way so it doesn't look like it.
And I think it's kind of backwards too, because I think George's storyline in episode 11, where she's helping Carson, one of my favorite things I've ever seen George do in the show, is seeing her have, like, to paraphrase from her, have agency over like her life, her exploring new parts of herself that she hasn't been able to explore because she had a French ghost inside of her. But I feel like have maybe some doubts about getting married and like slow it down. Like right now, George is lost, and that's fine. You can be lost, but I feel like I would have much rather had seen her arrive at this place where she's like, oh, maybe my dream of becoming a lawyer or working in this space is more attainable than I had believed. And that can be like the triggering event to where she's like questioning the rest of her life. Whereas like everything blew up and she's like questioning everything about her life, and she gets to this point where she feels reinvigorated in her identity, where she's like, oh, there's this new part of myself that I haven't really tapped into. Here's the new possibilities. To me, it just feels a little backwards. I think, I don't know. I don't think it needed to be as dire as it was with Nick and George. I think we could have slowed it down a little bit to get to her on the jury, or not on the jury, but like helping do legal work with Carson and taking stock of her life and what she wants. I think that to me would be a more compelling character arc than what has happened. But that's just me.
I feel the same.
And we'll never know. We'll never know.
We won't. But I just, to enter this, I thought even though, I'm sorry, Nick, the thought about it being like, I'm in a healthier place. And I love Nick. I really, really love Nick. But could I be still happy in another relationship. Like that is a thought that like I was like, oh, explore it. Like she doesn't have to be in another relationship, but I wish it wasn't just, oh, they broke up and now next episode I feel empty. I'm emptier than I've ever been. And you know, she's regretting that line of thought. But like it's actually an intriguing one because she's never really been in a healthier place than where she is now. And so this idea that like maybe I was rushing things with Nick, maybe I could be in a healthy relationship with somebody else. Maybe I shouldn't put all my eggs in this one basket when I'm like 20. Is like a fine thought. Just like it's fine that if she was all ready to be with Nick, then she could do that too. But I like that like they gave George a moment to be like, I'm doing great. Like I'm doing great and possibly I could do great doing other things. And maybe I shouldn't, you know, just tie myself to Nick because Nick is ready. She's not. And I think that is to explore that more would have been more interesting than an instant regret. And maybe they are going to do that. I loved her basically being Carson's law clerk and running around town and doing things. And I loved that Nick, you know, ended up on the jury duty for supernatural reasons and actually became integral to keeping that teen out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
Like an emotional speech. Tunji was acting. It was amazing.
It was amazing. It was incredible.
It was such a powerful performance. And I like to see Nick and George thrive as separate people. I know that sounds silly to say, but I feel like so many of these shows, when the supporting cast they group into the same storyline, which is like Chester and Allegra on The Flash, this is obviously much bit higher standard than that. But I feel like when they don't have time to tell these important stories for each of the characters, to just put them in a relationship and then have them tell the same story about them. It was nice this week to see George and Nick get spotlight as separate people. And then at the end, you got that kind of like nod from the two of them to each other because they worked well together, even though they weren't really working with each other. I feel like we're probably going to see them fall in love with each other all over again, and that might be nice to say. Still feels a little sudden considering how high the animosity and all was in the previous episode, but hopefully we're getting to better places with them because I just want to see them both thrive as separate people. And then if that's in a relationship, hopefully we get to that stage before the show finishes.
But see, I feel like that was the truth that wasn't expressed with the truth serum.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys ever watch a show and a character says something and it's like, you're not saying what as a viewer, what I think you should be saying from what I'm getting at. And I feel like that was what was happening was like, I think what George needed to express is that like, at least my reading is that as she was working with Carson, like she found an independence and a sense of self that she hadn't had before. And like I said, like that could kick off her like questioning everything and feeling like I want to explore this and feel like I can do something on my own and see where that takes me if that brings us back together. But I don't feel like that was the truth that was expressed. And maybe as a viewer, I'm reading it my own way. I have to remember that my perspective is different than the story that they're telling. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't completely work. So I'm ready to see what they're gonna do with Nick and George with the final 2 episodes and then season 4. But to circle back to Nick, man, I love when he gets his episodes where he really just gets to. I love a Nick episode. I really do.
We really got to dig deep. Like we were solving, we were investigating, we were doing our thing. And then he got pulled into the justice side of it. And that conversation at the table where he was like, yo, y'all are really willing to write this man off because you want to leave or because you've made assumptions that you're not supposed to be making assumptions about. I did love the way that he spoke to the woman who was like, if the parents are bad, so is the kid. And he was like, who what do your parents do? Like, I love that. And like, you're not a doctor, right?
I mean, sometimes you have to meet people with what they're giving you because they say things and they think they're correct. And you're like, okay, well, by that logic, let's lay this all out on the table and I'm going to feed you your logic back to you and see how it's not completely correct. And I loved seeing that in action. Like, it's a good reminder to have that, keep that in mind because it's so applicable today. Like, there's so much incorrect information, so many convictions that are based on pure fear and hatred that's not completely just. And just seeing Nick, that message in that episode, heard it loud and clear without it being like a very special episode. And that's what I love about the show, is that they have something to say, and if you're listening, you'll hear it.
Oh, it was like the episode with the woman who had gone missing. That was also like that was a whole episode that was very powerful, but they gave Nick the moment in this one. And they had everybody at the table too. There was even the woman who they originally thought was the carrying Charity's soul. She's like, I was kicked out when I was 16. And, I found my way. And he's like, yes, but you have to give him the opportunity to find his way too. And I was like, yes, preach. Like, save him.
Yeah, not everyone's story is the same. And I feel like it was important for Nick to be the one to say that. We've said it before. Nick episodes are incredible. And Tunji was just did a phenomenal job. But I never tire of listening to that man speak logic, because it was just such a powerful scene.
It was so cathartic and healing for Nick, I think, too. Like that's the parts of Nick where he finds catharsis and healing, is, again, helping people, saving somebody.
And he got to be the person he wishes he had at the jury table. And the way he was getting emotional too. And I was like, if y'all don't change your minds, like, because I don't see how you sit there and still want to convict that young man after what after what Nick laid out on the table.
Speaking of that young man, wasn't he the guy from Riverdale season 4 at Jughead's private school?
Yes. Brett, is that his name? Yes.
I think every time I see an actor from that season of Riverdale, I'm triggered. I'm like, wait, why? Why am I triggered? And then I have to figure out that they're from Riverdale season 4.
Did that really happen?
That happened in The Night Agent too. I was like, wait, I know her. Why is this?
Yeah.
This feels weird.
That's funny. I think that's it for, there's like a whole, but there's so much happened in these 2 episodes that we could be talking for like 3 hours about Nancy Drew. But I think I am going to table the rest of my thoughts, and I'll share them with you later.